is your favorite color?
You know, I was just thinking about that this morning, actually. No joke. Had like a whole so I was supposed to be preparing for this episode, and
so
I was
instead we think about our favorite colors instead of
I got
planning.
really existential, and I was thinking about like, yeah, it's really weird that children like latch on to favorites that are kind of chosen arbitrarily.
I've always had a favorite color.
Yeah, well, me too, but I think there's like this, you're compelled to just kind of pick a color so that like people can know you for like a live character.
Okay.
You're in an uncertain world as a kid. You're trying to get your bearings, and part of that is finding arbitrary traits to latch onto.
I've always been a red guy myself. Red has just always spoken to me.
Coming from the sports car fanatic.
Yeah, coming from this. I'm an all-car fanatic. Most of the cars I like are actually very bad.
Oh, yeah. I get that.
But
I like bad cameras.
Yeah.
The Pocket Cinema Camera Original, kind of a bad camera.
Interesting.
But it kind of rocks at the same time.
Well, speaking of cameras and things we do with cameras, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Matteo Guthrie. I've been a writer for a number of years, professionally within the luxury automotive and MarTech space currently. But Zack and I have been creative partners going back a long time.
Probably 6 years?
Something like
at least
that.
6.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 feels
at the very
good.
least 6. 6 years, it was only like 2018.
So we've been creative partners for almost 6 years, if not a little bit more than that.
Friends for longer.
Yes, definitely friends for longer. We met like in a cross-country club.
Yeah, we met in, I think I was barely in high school.
Yeah, I would have been in 8th grade or so. So it's been a while. I mean, we're like, you graduated, I'm 24.
And with that experience, we've made a good number of short films that we've entered in festivals. We've made some micro shorts that were pretty darn good, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, the micro shorts are my favorite thing. It kind of takes the pressure off creating a little bit. There's all these excuses not to create, and if you can kind of lower the bar a little bit, you know, it just makes it more likely that you'll create stuff.
For me, it's
a constraint.
It falls into two camps, especially as the writer. I've written a lot of our micro shorts. On one hand, like the micro short almost feels like a comic book one shot where you've got time constraints, right? Most of our micro shorts were 1 or 2 pages of script.
Yeah.
Which doesn't give me a lot of time to really like
flesh anything out.
Yeah, flesh anything out. Like if I'm doing character work, it better be like on point. But on the other side of the micro short for me, there's the concept of do a lot of bad stuff and you actually end up putting out better stuff than if you did one. Like if you took your time, often like quantity does beat quality, because with quantity, at least you're putting something out rather than agonizing over this one specific thing.
Right. You're getting your reps in, so to speak.
Back in college, and this was partially I was just gaming the system and figuring out that if you maxed out for my school literary journal, if you maxed out all your entries into it, you had a higher chance of actually getting in, just because, you know, maybe like a few judges had like some quibbles with whatever you were putting in, but if you put enough stuff in, eventually one would get through. They couldn't reject them all. I would get better results just writing a poem, quick like edit to make sure that, you know, it was kind of all together, and then sending it off. And I would max out my entries in about 2 hours. I would do all the writing. I think we got like 10 entries or 8 entries, something like that. And I just would shoot them all off, like basically no edits, because the journal was like, we'll make sure to give you any copy edits and notes on spelling or anything. So just a cursory edit, so I just didn't look like a complete buffoon sending it off. And I would send them off, and I got better results with that rather than putting, you know, maybe 3 really solid poems that I really liked into the running.
So by results, do you just mean like you think you're writing better things?
That's what I found, actually, is that I did end up writing better things.
When you compare, even if you spend the same amount of time writing one feature film versus writing 12 short films, you're spending the same amount of time, so you're thinking that it's making you, you know, equivalent.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting better linearly, but you're kind of not, because if you think about it, when you wrote the feature film, you structured a narrative once.
Yeah.
You wrote the same amount of words.
Yeah, I wrote the same amount of words, but
you didn't structure 12 narratives in 12 different ways.
And when you put out 12 narratives, you kind of have to make them different. So then you start to really branch and experiment and like mess with your workflow is what I find. And, you know, with our specific workflow working together, I've noticed that some of the most groundbreaking, like, oh, this is like, we found something that works, are like most groundbreaking moments. You know, the breakthrough really comes on micro shorts. We did a micro short back in, I think 2019 called Choose a Wagon.
Yes, that thing is still around.
Yeah,
it's still one
around.
of our favorite films.
It's frankly, it was my personal favorite up to very recently. But I've had people respond better to that one than to stuff I've done since that I've put more effort into, just because it was a micro short that we kind of got to flex some, I wouldn't say experimental by any means, but definitely experimental to us, new to us. And seeing some of the micro shorts that we'd done at the beginning of that summer compared to Choose a Wagon, which was, I believe, functionally our last one, really put it into perspective, like how, at least as a writer personally, I'd grown, and I definitely saw you level up within that same summer.
What's interesting, though, too, is that it wasn't until later on that we started appreciating it more. We didn't even enter it into any film festivals until a year or two ago.
And, like, you know, that was going up within the entries up against, like, a short film that I personally really liked, but it definitely was one that we'd put more effort into, and, you know, I really like strove to write a really good script. And here we are, you know, watching that and then Choose a Wagon getting sometimes a more positive response.
Yeah, literally. So moral of the story, like, yeah, getting your reps in has been something that's been like massively beneficial for us in just our development as a writer and as a filmmaker. I mean, we're both filmmakers.
Yeah, we're both, but, you know, as a writer and as a director,
right, and
cinematographer and editor and
best boy
and grip and head grip.
Yeah. You know, I like where filmmaking is at, though, for people like us.
Oh,
you know?
This is the best time.
I mean,
frankly.
yeah, cameras are so cheap. You know, distribution has been democratized through like platforms like YouTube, and I think it's so fun.
This is frankly just having digital storage.
Yeah,
leaps and bounds from where we were 20 years ago. You know, on mini DVs. It's so much easier.
I mean, we romanticize shooting on film, but like, you know, I had a really nice comment from an older gentleman on one of my YouTube videos, and he's been trying to make movies like us for a very long time, but like, you know, it was just so hard. He started with Super 8. Shooting on Super 8 nowadays is like a creative choice. Yeah. But with the benefits of nonlinear editors, you can just put that Super 8 footage in there and put audio to visuals, and it's so easy to edit.
As long as you have like a decently modern laptop that can run.
Yeah, or even like
free editing software, you're golden.
Yeah.
And that's not where we were, you know, even 20 years ago, as it were.
I mean, to put it into perspective, like making a film on Super 8 is super expensive, and getting the equipment to manually splice it and then find ways to add audio to it and sync that is like not super intuitive. And then getting a master, and then what do you do after you finally make the film? Like, cool, you have this master, but like, where are you going to show it? You're going to just run it through your projector and show it to some friends and family? That's
why the explosion of Super 8 cinematography for especially indie filmmakers really coincides with like film labs offering digitization services. Because suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I can throw this in Premiere, and it is shot on Super 8, but at least I can edit. I don't have to edit it on Super 8 with the little cutting things and the tapes and all of that. It's so much easier now than it was, again, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Right. Even if you're using the same like medium to capture the images.
For Peter Jackson, it took years for him to get his first film done, just because he had to afford the equipment to do that, and he was not working a necessarily cushy job at the time, so he wasn't even with inflation and all of the different economic situations.
Right.
He was still
had to save up and buy more film or whatever.
He was still in a place where it was prohibitively expensive to shoot film, and now it's not. It's very easy to buy a camera, to shoot some film, but then the distribution is a little difficult to navigate at this time, I feel.
Sure. I mean, I think there's more opportunity now than there was prior for distribution. I think I'm optimistic about YouTube. Like I freaking love YouTube.
See, I feel a tad pessimistic about YouTube, actually, just because of, again, I think there was one of your first films that had in the thousands of views.
My first like upload to YouTube got tens of thousands of views.
And it was not good.
And it was a crappy film. But it got seen, which was cool.
Seen. And now we're in the age of algorithms now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little harder to be seen and to build a platform. You have to build a brand as a filmmaker. You can't just put something out there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to become a marketing genius as well as a writer and director. All the other hats you have to wear to get this project made.
Mm-hmm.
You then have to flip around and put on another dozen hats just to get your film in front of other people's eyes.
For sure. And there was definitely a period of time between, I would say, 2018 to even as recently as 2023, where that was the case, where like filmmaking content just was not getting seen on YouTube. And I think part of the reason for that was just it's not searchable.
No,
you know, the things that were successful on YouTube, they contain successful keywords. And it was very difficult to do that with short films. And so what I was doing for a while, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I would put the camera that I shot a short film on in the title. That way,
I do remember that.
Yeah, that way if I could get traffic from people that were looking for footage from that camera, they'd be like, oh, I'll watch this short film because I'm in the market for a GH5 or something. And so it was all about those keywords and those search terms. However, I don't know if you have seen how many views our micro shorts have gotten, the ones I just posted a couple days ago.
It's been a significant uptick.
As of like February of this year, I've noticed a huge shift in YouTube. The algorithm will put your content in front of just a lot of people. It wants your content to be seen because the more work that gets seen, the more money they make. And so it's just blasting your content in front of as many people as possible in the short term. It's seeing who latches onto that. And then after it gets those results, it just trickles in the views based on who connects most with that content.
Okay.
And so The House That Eats, I posted that short film. The title of the YouTube video is just The House That Eats. It's a very nondescript title. You know, it's the name of the film, but I didn't even mention that it was a film. And that video got 700 plus views, which is nuts for a
micro
less
short.
than 2-minute microfilm. The thumbnail was terrible. You couldn't even see what was going on in the film. And I just didn't want to bother making a thumbnail for this, which is terrible advice. Don't listen to me for this, but you know, I just wanted to post this to show it to people. And that was super encouraging to me. So I think these algorithms are getting smarter to where it's putting the right content in front of the right people. And that's why, like, I think it's a great time to be a filmmaker or just to make content in general, because you don't have to make content that's widely appealing. You know, you can be very specific about the type of person, your target audience, and what types
that
of
is true.
things that they want.
When like talking about YouTube, what is like your number one takeaway from the past like 5 years of posting things on there?
Well, okay, so from the perspective of like someone
from
posting,
the perspective of like if I'm trying to get my project like found on YouTube, and I know the algorithm seems to change every 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so.
literally, which is what I was going to say. It's tricky because, you know, I started kind of going hard at making YouTube videos like in 2021. I was still in college and I like carved out a little space in my dorm to film videos. And I was very proud of that. We had like drop ceilings.
Yeah, I remember.
And so there's these little like they're called scissor clamps, I think is what they're called. And they're designed specifically to mount lights to drop ceilings. And so I bought one of those off like B&H and mounted it to my ceiling, had a light very similar to, well, you can't see it, but this panel light shooting at my background. And sometimes I would angle it and it'd be a backlight for me. And I had a, dome in there. It was fun and kind of nerdy. My friends probably they were very supportive. They were creative people as well. But yeah, it was fun. So I was making YouTube videos. I started out doing like the gear review thing because in my mind, YouTube filmmaker was synonymous with gear reviewer. And so I was just like, I should make YouTube videos because I have the skill set, so I might as well. What types of videos do people like me make? Gear reviews. And so I was doing a lot of those and it was fine. got kind of burnt out on it because there's only so much you can say about gear, and it's not,
especially when you don't have, $1 million contracts with
brands,
large companies and brand deals. And
at the end of the day, what you're using doesn't matter as long as it's worked. Like, it doesn't matter if you're using a Rode wireless mic over a DJI wireless mic. I mean, as long as you have a wireless mic, that's going to get the job done. So I felt like kind of a hack doing it. But something I learned while doing those kind of initial videos was I got a ton of traction from a Fujifilm video I made about, like, it was a photography focused video. And that video probably provided half of the subscribers that my channel currently has. So, a lot of my videos were getting 50, 60 views, maybe. A couple were hitting 100, 1,000, but that was a little bit more rare. This video gets like 60,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah. Something around there, which is huge for me. The problem is it ruined the expectation of those subscribers because I didn't make photography content.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people subscribed because of that video. They're like, we want to see more of this. And I was making like videos about video gear and filmmaking, which is not like those markets kind of overlap, but
they're not the same thing.
Yes. And unfortunately it was tricky to navigate for a while. Like, okay, should I keep making what works or should I make what I actually came here to make, which changed with time. So yeah, like dealing with the algorithm, and because I don't know if that's as much of a problem now, but I will say, just kind of a little tangent, it's posting, like putting a bunch of effort into a video that gets like 5 views kind of
soul crushing,
kind of hurts. So you have to be brave, if anything, if you're gonna put effort into working on something. And
that's really part of why, like, I'm saying, like, kind of find your people and like really like push to them, is because if you're just throwing it into the void, it stops to feel like it's worth it. And not that you should ever tie your art to a number. This was a big thing with like, why aren't you sharing? Like, why aren't my followers sharing my art? And it's like, well, like, just because they like that, like whether or not they like press like on the button, or if they, you can obviously see how many times your post is viewed versus the likes. If they press like on the button, that should be enough to show you that like they appreciate it. Mm-hmm. They don't have to share it necessarily. They don't have to be your own marketing people.
Right.
Eventually you will have to grow as a creator, and you will probably put out stuff that your core audience is initially there for, again, like a photography video isn't going to very much care very much about.
Sure.
Whatever you've grown into as you kind of augment your creative style. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to kind of find kind of a core group, for example, people that are really into like a specific subculture, and if you make a lot of content about that.
So how does what we've talked about so far coincide with our philosophy of quick and dirty?
Okay, so our philosophy of quick and dirty...
Maybe give some context, too.
Yeah, our philosophy of quick and dirty has been, I think, over the past year, I would really say. Mm-hmm. We decided that we'd come up with these big projects. I would write... sometimes a feature-length script, sometimes just like a 30-minute short. And it would be high concept, and it would really push what we could do. And we would do a bunch of pre-production, get the script all lined out, start to like talk to like actors or something. And then it would eventually fizzle out because one of us would get either burnt out or scared.
Yeah, cold feet.
And it's understandable, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go in, and especially where we are as filmmakers right now, which is we're getting a lot of people working for free as cast and crew, etc. And you never want to be the person that puts out puts out all this effort and has a film that fails.
Yeah. Well, and there's a fear of wasting other people's time.
Yeah, wasting other people's time, getting, calling in favors for nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even having a finished product, which is even more disappointing, because at least if you have an end product with some sort of production value, you can send that out to your actors, and that at least they feel rewarded. Even if they're like, oh, this was a bad film, it's like, at least I have something for my reel. I can cherry pick.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there is that fear of like, oh, I've like expended all this energy and I wasn't even able to finish it off.
Right.
I wasn't able to follow through. Let's like hold off till we're comfortable doing this.
For sure.
Which screws us over.
Well, there's an element of pushing yourself when it
Yeah.
comes to like pushing past the boundary that you've established before, you know, doing things that are a little bit harder than the last thing you did. You know, you always want to grow. But then there's the other element of, if you get into over your head, you run the risk of, one, wasting people's time, and two, burning some bridges.
Yeah.
And so we had a feature film lined up 2 years ago that we were ready to start shooting.
And it was perfectly filmable, but it would be filming a feature film as people whose longest film before that was 15 minutes,
Yeah,
something
if
like that.
Yeah.
Which is suboptimal. We'd put it off, and then we'd time to do another feature. We're going to do another feature this year. And we'd line it all out, and I'd get a lot of experience writing features, and I would really appreciate that. But even with the more ambitious shorts that we'd done, there was an aspect to it of, like, we wouldn't be putting out stuff because we were too busy working on a project that wouldn't come to fruition that year.
Right.
And Quick and Dirty is kind of at a certain point, we realized we're not getting anywhere with this. We're putting a lot of thought and a lot of production value into things that we're either not ready for yet or just aren't able to fully realize yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so we switched to Quick and Dirty, which was do it very fast, do it very dirty. Usually, sometimes...
Preferably without thinking about it too hard.
Yeah, don't think about it too hard. Write a script that works, right? Make it writable. You don't have to, write in special effects or too much production value, but put out something that's at least solid, even if it's not the most polished.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's that concept of quantity over quality and really evolving in style, because even from The House That Eats, which solid film, one of my favorites we've done,
Mm-hmm.
to Does God Love Robots, like the
Huge jump.
huge jump in quality, despite the fact that we were really doing it with the same
Constraints?
I would say the same constraints, which is about 24 hours notice.
Mm-hmm. There's the aspect of, I want to do a big project because I want to grow. But at the same time, for the reasons I already gave, like, that can be super risky. So Quick and Dirty is the antithesis to that, but it's not at the expense of challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Because what you put in its place are constraints. And those constraints, whether it be time, resources, I think those are the things that make you grow as an artist more, not just scale of a given project.
And of course, like, this is not to say you should ditch your ideas as far as going on embarking on a mission to put out a feature. That's not saying that. It's just saying that if you find yourself paralyzed by the act of making something big, making something small, fast, in a way that still challenges you, definitely has its place.
Yeah, it
And I
absolutely
think
does.
Where we are right now as filmmakers, both having pretty packed schedules, being busy people, an evening shoot where you're really going hard in the paint and coming home late is frankly better than having to let the moon and stars align
For that dream project to finally,
project.
Yeah. And then even if it does work out, it goes back to your point of, well, you're not getting as many reps in.
Yeah.
If you were to just do a bunch of smaller projects.
But if I fail, in a written, starred in, partially directed and filmed all by myself, if that's a failure, it's like, oh well.
Yeah.